ourselves, and sometimes it also erupts in conflict. So they had evolved a system, a social principle of dealing with a society which is very diverse, made up of varied type of people, in a manner in which conflict was seen as normal, and they normalized differences amongst people. They evolved a principle of how do we deal with the fact that we may have contending opinions and that decisions may not always be by consensus. So while consensus is the norm, they realize that consensus may not be possible, particularly in divided, very diverse societies. So then they evolved a principle by saying people come together to talk, discuss. And when they come together to discuss, it's a no-hold-barred discussion. Everybody talks, everybody discusses. Final decision, consensus, ideal. If it is not consensus, you arrive at a solution. And this is the twist. You arrive at a solution with the least harm to the people concerned. Now, this was a principle that was behind Ashoka's Sangha in the about 2,500 years back, and various other things all across Asia that we had found. Of course, there were some problems with the old ancient principle. We dealt with them. For example, people belonging to the Dalit or the untouchable communities were not allowed, or lower caste communities were not allowed, women were not allowed. So we took the good part of the principle and addressed the parts which were not acceptable in a modern sense. And we then worked with the notion of the Kudam. And for about 28, 30 years now, I've been working in different parts of India and also in different continents. It's worked out very, very well. At the basis of it are three key principles. One is that everybody has to talk and everybody has to own the Kudam. The Kudam is a notional space. So unless we put in, we don't take out. The second thing is that we respect everybody's opinion, even when we feel very strongly about it. And the third is that compliance is voluntary. You don't need a policeman to comply. So we took these principles, evolved those principles into a practical, workable basis. And that is what we have created. So this Kudam that we have created here, this is a virtual Kudam. I have not met 3/4 of the people who participated in this Kudam. But the principle has been working out very, very well. One part is, how do we call ourselves? If you're going to be friends in a long journey, you don't call yourselves in professional terms like doctor or sir or madam or whatever. So we try to call ourselves by the name. Many times our names are given by our parents without our choice. So people decide that if you want to have a name of your own, which you'd like your close friends to call you, you call yourself that. So my parents gave me the name Suresh. I had no choice. So I am called Kudam. I gave myself the name Kudam, which in Tamil means friend. I'm sorry. I gave myself the name Nanba, which means friend in Tamil. And in across about 20 countries where I have conducted Kudams, I'm Nanba. Suresh is just a formal name. So that's a Kudam. So, and the Kudam has worked out very well, as you will see in the next hour or so. Over to you, Azad.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm sorry. I just have a question. Can I ask, or should I just wait to? Should I just wait to complete this webinar?
So ask your question now. Is it related to the Kudam?
Yeah, it is actually related to Kudam.
Go ahead.
So,
but just be brief.
Sorry?
Could you just please be brief in your question?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So basically, I wanted to understand, like, so far I read a little bit about Kudam, and Mr. Suresh explained about what it is. So I wanted to understand in terms of Gram Sabha that we used in the Indian villages context, that how Gram Sabha is getting conducted, or it happens within the village where everybody is open to have their opinion and share their views and opinion as well. So how is it different from, how Kudam is different from Gram Sabha?
Can we take it up later, Asha? It's a very big issue that you raised. Very important also.
Yeah, sure. No issue.
But at the basis is that the old principles no longer remain. In the name of democracy and in the name of modern constitutional systems, the panchayat has become the basis for a new form of colonialism inside India. So the old principles are no longer functioning, which is why we are trying to revive them. And we have been in the Barefoot Academy working with a number of panchayats, very, very divided, and trying to see how it will get people who are fighting each other, killing each other, to come together. That principle exists. People still remember. One more generation, it will be gone. Right now, it exists. But can we talk about it later? We could follow it up on this.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. But thanks for bringing the reality into, this Kudam now. So, yeah.
Yes. Thanks very much, Asha, and thanks, Nanba. I invite all of you, if you would like to join the Kudam, um, please stay in. As you have heard it, if you'd like to know more about the Kudam, please remain. And if you'd like to change your names to your Kudam names, you can do so now as well. Yeah. Um, I am going to go straight into handing it over to some of our participants. Today's session is, as I had said, the final concluding session of 16 sessions. So a number of our participants have come together to put together a brief showcase for those of you who are joining us from outside. So you just get a glimpse of the concepts that we've been discussing, our method that we've been following, and the kinds of discussions that we've had within our group. First, we have we have about 5 or 6 of our participants have volunteered to share certain of the ideas from Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed that they found most resonated with them, that provoked them, that appealed to them to test in real life. One fundamental part of the course was that we don't just go into it like our regular school or university classrooms, just absorbing knowledge, but we go out and test our concepts with reality and see and contest these ideas in the real world and work our ways through these ideas, grapple with these ideas by ourselves. So this is the part that our participants are going to share. I am going to briefly share a presentation which will tell you the different ideas that that our participants are going to be speaking of. Please let me know if you can see it in just a second. All right. Can you all see the presentation on the screen? Can I have a few thumbs up?
It's a black screen. Okay, now you can see.
Black screen.
Now you can see.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So from a black screen into the light is Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. All right. I am having some trouble. Welcome to the Kudam, and we are going to be briefly covering these themes. Humanization, which is humanity's vocation, false generosity and its opposite, true solidarity, internalization and the duality of the oppressed, the banking model of education, which is closely linked with the problem-posing method of education. What is the essence of Freirean dialogue and praxis? And finally, critical analysis. On that note, over to the first presenter. If you'd like to take over. Who is the first presenter, please?
Hi, Azad. It's me, Sharika.
Okay. Thanks, Sarika. Over to you. I'm going to stop the screen share.
Very good evening to all of you. I'm a development practitioner and have been based out of just a second, video. Am I visible? Hi.
Yes, you may want to lower your video camera a little below. Yeah, maybe slightly below. Okay.
Yeah.
So all of you are truly getting a demo of how the study classes were conducted, in that you're also seeing the issues that we had over Zoom. So please, apologies for that. Over to you back again, Sarika. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a development practitioner based out of Bangalore and recently back to Bombay. And I've been working with base speakers in Maharashtra and in Karnataka. And I've been familiar with Pedagogy of the Oppressed, but Kudam is the place where I really got to engage with my own thoughts in the marginally about how I understand my work and look at it and understand the processes that are happening around me and with the people I work with. Humanization and humanity's vocation is one such core themes of the book, where Freire really puts each of us into our own positionality and helps us understand um, why dreaming of a world that is more equal, that is more human, that is less dehumanizing, has to be the ontological vocation of each one of us. And as someone who is reading the text for the first time, in a way, critically engaging with it, because I was continuously judging my own work and my role within it, and the idea of how dehumanization of the not just the oppressor, not just the oppressed, but also the oppressor happens, and how that reversal is not just within the hands of people like us who come in with the attitude of sometimes very wrongly with the savior complex to issues of the world, was a huge uh, awakening to realize how equally dehumanized we are in our own positions, and how the power to rectify this was not within the hands of the oppressor, but in the hands of the oppressed. That was the starting point to look about the role that I can play as a companion, as a comrade, uh, in making a transformation in this world. And I've been occupied by looking at it from the lens of my own work. Sometimes it was only through dialogue at work that I could make certain changes in the way we looked at the community we were working with, and how we envisioned the vision for the community and their future, and how we wanted to transform it. So having the partnership of the community members who are the waste pickers in the decision making process of deciding what projects to take on, what works to do, how to approach issues, was one breakthrough where I found the process, the dialogical process and communicative action really come into play, where each one of us were also aware about our own limitations imposed by the structural issues, like our fear of change, our fear of freedoms, and of course this overarching uh, structure of imposed upon us by banking model of education, where we thought depositing knowledge, depositing welfare onto the marginalized class is one way of change. And slowly the process of rethinking that started within me. So reading about this process, identifying myself with it, and making course correction, if it, on one hand it was dialogue for me to engage with my own work and to be part of this transformation, and on the other hand I've realized it is also about the lifelong commitment to make sure uh, that I hold myself responsible to be equally participant in this process even when I leave this particular workplace, as an essential component of, as an incomplete human being. I see that as my responsibility now. So I don't know if it has truly covered it, but I know the overarching issue of humanizing and dehumanization is something that I've very uh, solely thought of, and I wanted to share about it. But I would just conclude by saying, if if this book has given me one thing, it is hope that we can engage in this struggle together. So that is what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarika. Um, for each of the sharings, for each of the concepts, we'll invite the audience to pose any questions that come to mind around around what has been shared, also around the concept, or any of your own reflections around this concept that when you may have tested this idea in practice over your lifetimes in your experience.
seconds. So Vikas asks, can someone briefly explain the banking model of education? We'll just cover that in the next one or two presentations. Yash asks, what does Freire idea of dehumanization look like? Would Sarika or anybody else want to take that?
I think we'll be jumping. Sarika laid a very powerful beginning. I think some of those concepts will be taken up by the other speakers. So perhaps we can go to the other speakers and then invite, as we understand it, this is now we have launched a new Kudam, yet another Kudam. So please feel free to come and share your whatever strikes you. Sarika's sharing was extremely powerful. So anything that prompts you up, I mean, just keeping in mind the limitation of time. But please do come in at any point in time. You can either show your hand or at the end of every speaker. So if there's something that's triggering new questions that you may have, your own experience to sort of briefly share, please feel free to come ahead.
And feel free to engage in the chat at any point.
Joan says, thank you, Sarika, inspired. Joan is from South Africa. I met her recently. And she's been working in the whole anti-apartheid movement there. Very inspiring to meet her about 2-3 weeks back. Welcome, Joan.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah.
Did they have your hand raised? Go ahead.
So this is the first day I have joined this group because I have been reading that book and I'm halfway through, and it's a very dense read for me. And the thing is, there are many concepts that are being said which I can imagine, but I really wish to see it in action. You know, I just it would be nice if you know, I can see that interaction, how it goes. So if there is any articles or any conversations which happen, some kind of documents, I would like to have, because it's a very uplifting thing. Yeah.
Vidya,
Yes?
I think let's again park this question and come back at the end of the present, because there are about 6 or 7 themes that participants have chosen, and they will all be talking about practical experiments that they have done.
Oh,
so we can, at the end of
thank
it, we can come back to the question that you have raised. Huh?
yeah, sure.
We are not ducking any question. In Kudam, we don't duck any question, but for the sake of time, and it might come up later on. Yeah, if that's okay with you.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much.
So Azad, if you can go to the next.
Sure. I'm just going to wait 30 seconds to see if there's anybody else who wants to speak.
Would anybody else want to share what you felt at the end of the sharing?
Michelle, would you like to, if possible, are you able to speak what you've shared in the chat?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Michelle here from New York. I've been working for a very, very long time with, organizations like UNICEF and the World Bank and so forth and so on. And I just want to say that I think what Sarika touched on is the problem you sense as you walk through the door into those buildings, and then throughout every step of the way. I mean, that is really, what do these organizations? Why are they there? Who are they there for? And of course, we have answers to this, but I just want to say this has so many implications about how we all do our work, and I just want to thank her. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to very quickly share how you feel before we move on to the next presentation? Krishna, some of these questions will be addressed in the next presentations. If not, we'll, once again, if you could request you to park that, and we'll come back at the end of the class. Thanks. Okay, we'll move on to the next presentation. Okay. Tanika, is that yours?
Yeah.
All right, great. I'm just going to share my screen.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the theme you're presenting on, Tanika?
Yeah, I have a couple of slides. Yeah, so I'll be talking about Paulo Freire's idea of false and true generosity. So I want to start with this cartoon. So if we can all just look at it for maybe 10 seconds, and then I'll move on. Yeah, could you just move to the next slide? Sure. Yeah, so there are two kinds of generosity Freire speaks about. So false generosity is what we often see, say, in the form of CSR initiatives, corporate social responsibility, or with philanthropy, where the idea is to soften the power of the oppressor, and instead of actually dismantle the system of oppression, it feels like it's more to soothe the conscience of the oppressors. So, for example, if you look at these big corporate companies or wealthy people who offer to pay the school fees or give these festival bonuses to cleaning staff and so on, instead of actually paying them a good salary or having working conditions that would allow them leaves and so on, that would change the system of oppression itself. Instead, you're offering these donations and things like that in the form of generosity. So false generosity softens the power of the oppressor instead of actually dismantling that power structure itself. It also enables continued opportunities to express this form of generosity. While with true solidarity, your goal is actually to erase the need for any kind of generosity itself. False generosity is also nourished by death, despair, and poverty, which true solidarity actually seeks to eradicate from the world completely. False generosity also has the goal of maintaining the status of the oppressor. So the one who's, giving out these donations or the one who's doing this charity, they want to maintain their own wealth. They want to maintain their own status as the power holder, as the oppressor, while also acting as though you are helping the ones who are oppressed. While with true solidarity, you're actually challenging the basis of the oppression itself. What are the systems of exploitation, the systems of oppression that are causing the oppressed to need this kind of support? False generosity also comes from a space of pity and sympathy, whereas true generosity comes from a desire for social justice, for equity, and so on. I think another way I see these two concepts is in terms of the kind of space people end up taking up in activism and so on, where I think with false generosity, where people who already have power choose to speak on behalf of the oppressed or choose to take up more space. Whereas if you're showing true solidarity, you're actually creating space, you're stepping back and allowing people who typically don't get to share their voices, people who typically don't get the space to come and take up the space instead. Sham, could you just move back to the cartoon now? Yeah, so keeping this in mind, I'd like to revisit this cartoon and just look at it in terms of this framework that I sort of just introduced. So yeah, I think this cartoon kind of sums it up, where this person is giving out these donations to fund a public hospital, or in some cases, it could be an education institute, or any such thing. But the source of this person's wealth is coming from continued exploitation, is coming from continued oppression of the poor, of the oppressed. In the case of India, it could be the lower castes. Yeah, Sham, could you move to the next slide? So I want to also share this idea that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar talks about an annihilation of caste. So he says that the best of men cannot be moral if the basis of relationship between them and their fellows is fundamentally a wrong relationship. To a slave, his master may be better or worse, but there cannot be a good master. A good man cannot be a master, and a master cannot be a good man. So I think this again captures the idea of Freire's false generosity and true solidarity, where if you're seeking to continue maintaining this power structure, if you want to continue maintaining the relationship of oppressor and oppressed, you're not actually changing anything. You're not actually liberating anybody. Whereas if you want to show true solidarity, you have to break that basis of the oppression. You have to change the relationships itself. Yeah, thank you. Is there anything anybody would like to add from the Kudam or any questions? Sorry, I think there was one more slide, right, Sham?
Yes. Shall I
Yeah.
just share that?
Mm.
I just wanted to check with you about that.
Yeah, so to end, I just kind of wanted to leave some things for everybody to ponder about. So, what are our ideas of philanthropy in the world? Where does our notion of corporate social responsibility come from? And for all of us as individuals, I think for me, what I found useful to understand this false generosity, true solidarity is how do you view the person you are seeking to help? Does it come from any space of condescension? Are you pedestalizing yourself in any way? Do you see yourself as a savior? And if your answer, in my opinion, if your answer to any of these questions are yes, it's probably false generosity in Freire's sense and not true solidarity. Yeah, thank you.
Tarika, just to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Tanika. I live in Bangalore. I work as a school teacher. And I've been wanting to read this book for very long, but I was struggling to actually get through the first chapter because it requires some commitment. So I'm very grateful for this Kudam. There's lots that I've taken away, both in terms of my direct practice as a school teacher, but also overall. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tanika. Any brief responses?
Hi, Sham. This is Simran.
Hi, Simran.
I can't turn the video on. I'm in cab traveling, but I just wanted to share a real world example which may be helpful. And a disclaimer before that, I've been a student and co-learner at Barefoot Academy for a few years now, and very fond of Suresh's work. We work on energy and climate governance. I will like to share some of our experience from Chabra. Chabra is a power plant in Rajasthan on the border of MP. It's a very sort of a backward area. Uh, uh, right, Lenije. Sorry, I'm just guiding my drive. And it happens to be also a feudal area. And Chabra is a government owned thermal power plant, right? So one of the old landlords in the area is basically the one who handles a lot of contractual work for the workers. So anyway, you want to get a job in the plant, the person from the village has to approach this person who is politically also very powerful, right? Now this is an area where labor work in very very poor conditions, safety hazards and whatnot. And still he's considered the MIPA, the caretaker for that community. So the point of Tanika, the way it softens the power of the oppressor, right? It's exactly this, where soften the power of the oppressed. I would say the oppressed thinks of their victim or come to perceive of their victimizer. Sorry, as the caretaker, as the benefactor. I hope that puts some context on what Tanika presented.
Thank you, Simran. We have a couple of hands raised. Prachi, if you could go first, very, very briefly, please.
Yes, sure. So I just wanted to share how the same thing is happening in Odisha. I don't come from academic background, or neither did I have any understanding of this book that we are discussing or the work that Barefoot or Kudam does. But I work in tribal regions in Odisha, and here the same thing is happening where mining companies, they take away the land, they force us to migrate, and then they start giving CSR money, start having like conducting charities and all that, which makes no sense. But this is the first time I'm seeing it in theory. So it made me feel like, oh God, this has been written so long ago and still like here in Odisha, here in practice. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have a couple other hands raised. I'm just going to ask one person. Yash, could you please speak briefly? Yogesh, if you wouldn't mind parking your question for a little later, just in the interest of time. Yash?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm Yash, and this is my first session in this in Kudam. I don't. What I have in mind is a bit. It's a question or a rumination. It's a bit patchy, but what I think is that, in the sense that there is this a very reductive sort of discourse where we which establishes this oppressor-oppressed binary. I'm not saying that oppressor and oppressed do not exist, but there are some gray areas, and how do we sort of uh, make sense of those gray areas? That it's not the case that the oppressed always resist and the oppressed always sort of uh, uh, sort of settles and justifies the status quo. So in the case of India, for example, it was the elite that sort of that spearheaded the freedom movement and was the face of resistance during the anti-colonial movement. And today, many sort of people have written about how it is the Bahujans that were excluded from this elite sort of resistance phase, which was mostly dominated by upper caste Hindu men. And it is like the Bahujans are now finding space in or are being given space by the right. So how do we sort of make sense of these contradictions or these places where the binary sort of breaks down? And I'm not sure if I have put it very well, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your rumination. Very provocative and enticing us to respond. But unfortunately, we will have to park that. I can see some smiles on the faces of people who are waiting to respond to. But yes, we'll come back to some of these. Nanba?
I just want to respond to that and add to one idea. Yeah,
Yes.
so I think there definitely is a lot of gray and the binary isn't very clear. I think one more concept Freire talks a lot about is the role of say people from the oppressor community, but people who are a little more aware of these the structures of the oppression. And he talks about I guess like a revolutionary or a revolutionary leader and activist and so on, who sort of occupy the sort of middle space where where you might be from the oppressor community, but change the structure. Nanba, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, it's very tempting to add, but then I'm keeping in mind time. The only thing that I would like to say, tell Yash is that, Yash, this has been part of it. I've been in activist world for about 40 years now. The challenge before us in the class was, how do we go beyond binaries? Freire wrote in the 60s, we are now in the 21st century. So between the oppressor and the oppressed is an entire middle field in which many of us are there. Now, depending on which country we are coming from, it's different sets of people who are there. For example, when I met Joan some time back, she talked about how there could be people in South Africa there were people in South Africa during the anti-apartheid movement who may have belonged to the white community. Do they have a place? Don't they have the place? No, these are issues that have always been coming. And Freire gives one way of looking at it. And Tanika put it very beautifully, which is to say that it's up to each one of us to ask the question, where are we? And in the work that we are doing, what are we helping to consolidate or to continue? The development sector in India, for example, what is the development sector contributing to? People who are coming out from social work institutions, people who are coming out of numerous fellowships. What are we actually doing in terms of challenging structures of power? Okay. Now, those are the things that we took up for greater exploration in the classes. We try to go beyond the binary, Yash, so that we can have multiple locations between the two endpoints. And from that location, the whole attempt was how do we each look at ourselves and look at various sets of people, both Dalit, for example, in Indian context, the various castes, tribes, migrant labor, for example, denotified tribes, and numerous other things were in between. But again, this is a longer discussion. I don't want to take too much time on this.
Can I just add a brief point?
Yeah.
So like during my previous work, I was actually extensively traveling Gujarat for field work for research, and in the course of doing that project with our professors, and we were discussing this thing, and that so we were discussing cement and how, from an environmental point of view, from many points of view, the extensive use of cement can be criticized. But then one point that came up from one of the professors was this: that for the very marginalized, cement is the thing that if they make a pakka house, that's going to improve their lives by so many times. That will give them so much stability and some sort of growth and all that. So for us, for someone like me sitting in a pakka house, I might want to criticize the idea of cement, but then for someone who does not have a pakka house, cement is the thing, despite all of its problems with the whole construction boom and all that. Just a brief point. Something, a practical example.
Many of these points were taken up, Yash, in the Kudam. This was done over 4 months. So the points that you were taken were discussed. For example, do we have a right to decide on behalf of the oppressed people who have been deprived of many things? Some things that we think from a different point of view are bad. I think those are the questions that we need to ask, and we are not asking ourselves within activist circles, within developmental field, where we are going to prescribe. We never analyze our own contributions. But again, Yash, it's a very big area. I would not want the presentation to get stuck on that. So if you don't mind, we'll go forward. Number of people are raising hands. Azad.
Let's come back to them later, Nanda.
Yeah. So can I request everybody, can you put your questions there so that we'll come back to those questions? So you don't forget it and we don't also overlook it.
Yeah, we are also making a list of all the questions that are being asked that are not being addressed right now.
Just to explain to all of you, the entire presentation has been made by all the participants. We have had no role on that because we have sat down in discussions. So there's a particular structure, and it will be only fair that they get a chance to go through it, and then we can come back to the questions. I hope that's agreeable. I know it's not the best fit, but under the circumstances, keeping in mind time, if we could go forward.
Thanks very much, Nanba. Also, since the questions are really just popping like popcorn, I just wanted to say that we are thinking about Barefoot Academy is thinking about offering another round of the Freire Study Circle. So some of you may, if you're a bit patient, you can join us in the future. Yeah. Thanks so much, Tanika. Moving to the next presentation, and thanks in particular for bringing Ambedkar into our session on such a momentous day in India as we march into the elections. Next person, please, is that Vinuta? Vinuta, would you like to join?
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. So I'll be on okay, I'm not going to start my video because I have low data backup. So I'm going to turn off my video. And so I'm Mayura in the Kudam, and Vinita is my real name. So I work with Street-Based Sex Workers Collective in Bangalore and have some engagement with organizations that work with slum dwellers and women's and civil rights movements. For me, this book has been the first real experience of any kind of exposure to a political book, and it was really an awakening part for me because I had a lot of questions when I was engaging with these communities and also the network space where I am. So this book kind of answered a lot of questions that I had, and many have been resonated deeply with me. The most that resonated with me is why the oppressed become oppressors, and the answer actually is in the book. So this book made me understand the reality for what it is, and I would like to proceed with what I have learned. Although there's so much difficulty, it was for me to understand, and the Kudam has been really helpful, and their hand-holding process throughout has helped me understand this book, and I'm sure trying to understand what I've understood. So Shyam, Azar, can you please share the PPT that I... Thank you. So I would like to open up with this image. If you all can look at it and see what is it that you've been thinking about this image, and if one or two people can just say what they see in this image. One or two answers, please, or responses. Thank you.
Yeah, verbal responses, please, one or two. For all the friends who joined in.
I can see you. I'm Parth. I can see a sad student who is tied and restricted.
It's the story that the elephant must have been tied when it was younger, but then now, even though he has grown, he still feels that the rope can limit his power, or he cannot get freedom because he's tied because of his past experiences of.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Yes. So a lot of conditioning has gone into where the elephant accepts and believes and thinks that it cannot break away from the chain. So it's the same with the oppressed, where the oppressors have conditioned and have created systems where the oppressed believe and identify with stereotypes and myths that the oppressors have created. For example, we think, what can I do? I'm just a common person. I am weak and they are superior race, or whatever structures that we have created, and we must bend to their will. So internalizing a lot of oppressors' words, where we tend to experience and feel shame, have a low self-esteem, lack confidence. And also we often give in to fatalism, where we think this is my fate, and also resort to gods, where we think, oh, this is my fate, and I know God has some paths for me. So this is something that the oppressed system have kept us to be conditioned and believe that we are this way, and so we would rather suffer and can't question why we are this way. Shyam, next slide, please. And similarly, can you any of you, one or two people, can answer or respond what you see?
So Vikas writes, very similar to how women in our society are conditioned.
Sorry, Shantan, can you please repeat that?
Vikas shares in chat that this is similar to how women in society are conditioned.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just proceed with this. This is a concept where Freire talks about oppressed people ascribing to be the oppressors, where they internalize and manifest a lot of values, beliefs that the oppressors have inculcated, and even start to behave like the oppressor, where they to validate their identity and also gain acceptance and status in the society. Even often resort to acts where they tend to be violent. So even though the oppressed are being oppressed by the oppressors, they want to resonate with the oppressor. So a lot of internalization of this has happened, and conditioning of social structure, the conditioning has happened, where and also the systems are such that the teachings, the values are also makes the oppressed people to ascribe to the oppressor, to appropriate whatever values that they have, to think that theirs is superior and we also want to be like them. So most of our values and the oppressed values are derived from the oppressor's teaching. And so even when an oppressor gains power, they replicate the same oppressive behaviors and structures, so that they can either resist to resist to have a liberation of their fellow comrades, or even tend to become oppressed while oppressing their fellow comrades. So it's easier for them to, because they are easily identified with the oppressors, which is oppressed, which is housed within them, who's housed within them. Shyam, the next slide, please. Okay. can one of you please share what you see and if you can resonate with this?
Thanks. Anyone can jump in. We had a lot of people earlier. Anyone who has spoken before can join as well.
Nature writes, familiar provides some comfort. The unknown is frightening. I think Prabir writes, the oppressed feeling safer inside the cage.
Motorize the oppressed feeling safe inside.
Yeah, Prabir, yeah.
Yes. So the concept that Freire says is fear of freedom, where, like you said, the oppressed would rather be would rather be oppressed and be in a place where it is also what the oppressor wants to have the status quo maintained because the oppressed is afraid of exploring opportunities and also exploring the unknown, such that when confronted with embracing their own autonomy or agency or liberation, it is very difficult for them to explore it. So I do work with like I said, I work with the sex workers community where a lot of them have this fear of freedom. And for them, embracing this autonomy or agency is very difficult because from the kind of experience that I have seen, I have lived with them for 2 years, and from what I have seen, the women endure so much intimate violence from their partners and suffer instead of questioning what is it that they're enduring and is it even worth. So because of the shame and stigma that's attached to their lives, they feel that the oppressors have given them a life and that they're happy to be with them despite the violence. So they also justify and validate their abuse, saying that they are the wrongdoers and they deserve this suffering, and somebody is giving them a life so that they have to be with them. So they're afraid to break away from the chains where they don't understand that there's a life outside this oppression. So to be able to understand this concept, because I've been questioning a lot why they're going through a lot of violence. Why is it not easy for them to break away from the violence? Because for me, it was about empowerment, and they earn their own finances, and there were a lot of there were a lot of questions within me where I could not understand why they be with an oppressor. So the book has really helped me understand all these concepts and not have for judgment while I'm working with them, to truly understand and engage in dialogue with them, to be able to work on these issues and continue working with them towards the process of liberation. Next slide, Shyam. Okay, sorry, can anyone please connect with this visual? If anyone can connect with this visual, kindly share your opinion. Giridhara, you have raised your hand.
Namal writes, group oppression through stereotyping.
Yes. So how I resonate with this image is that there's a lot of contradictions and conflicts within the oppressed, where they're trying to break away from the chains of the oppression, but also it is very difficult for them to come out of this oppression because of the conditioning and the internalized values that they have of the oppressor. So the concept that Freire talks about is of duality, where a person or the oppressed person is also in the same is in the same socio-cultural relations, which is also an oppressive in nature, and it's very difficult to come out of that invaded structure. So to apply it in the system that I am with is the gender-based discrimination or the patriarchy, where women, because of the conditioning and the internalized values of patriarchy, they also enforce violence against women and also other people. So this concept also resonated deeply with me because again, a lot of questions: why do women, or why does anybody who's oppressed oppress the other people? So to be able to understand that there is a duality within an oppressed person because of the ascribing to the oppressor and housing an oppressor within oneself, where the oppressor do not want to have the freedom. He wants to maintain the status quo and want to be oppressing the people. So there's a lot of struggle that happens within an individual where liberation, the process towards liberation is really difficult because for us to change the roles, to make them understand and change the roles from being an oppressor to the oppressor, or oppressed to oppressed transformation is really difficult because the systems are also such that they enable these oppressive systems. So creating equitable and just societies is really difficult. The concept that Freire talks to break away from this duality is the critical consciousness, or raising a consciousness of oneself, where we deeply analyze and critically reflect on the experiences that we've gone through, recognize the oppressive forces that also shape our reality, and through collective dialogue, through questioning the narratives that has been set by the dominant majority, and also to break away from not being able, to also foster solidarity and collective action, where we can reclaim one's agency and also autonomy. So to breaking away from that oppressor with house within oppressor house within an oppressor, the critical consciousness plays a very vital role. So this is really profound for me, where I've experienced I've experienced where oppressed have become oppressors, and it was really difficult to grapple with this, because how do you oppress your fellow comrades? So to be able to understand this concept and know that I'm not justifying the individual facts, but understanding why an oppressed person tends to violent acts and become an oppressor. So and how it can be changed. So this was really important for me, because if these questions were still sitting with me, I don't think I would have been working with the communities that I'm working with. So to be able to understand these concepts was really helpful to continue my engagement with the communities, and also to find measures, and also to think deeply about what to do with these kind of questions that I have. So next, to conclude.
Yeah, is it possible for you to wrap up in maybe a minute?
Yes, 2 minutes. Yeah, concluding.
If
Sorry,
you could
next
just
slide,
hasten
please.
it, that'll be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next slide. So this, I came across this slide while Freire talks about oppressed become resorting to destructive acts. So it was very uncomfortable for me to initially understand why an oppressed person tend to become a criminal or tend to destructive acts. So this is a quote from Bertrand Russell, who says that people seem good while they are oppressed, while they only wish to become oppressors in their turn. Life is nothing but a competition to be criminal rather than the victim. So what Freire also talks is similar to this, except there's no judgment that he talks about. Instead, he also addresses why an oppressed person tends to behave like a criminal, given that he is in the same systemic, given the systemic and structural condition that deprive the oppressed of many things in life and engage in criminal activities. So this is what I see in this is many of sex workers are perceived with a lot of criminalization, and they, instead of questioning why a woman chooses to be a sex worker, they're dealt with a lot of stigma and again criminalization. So instead of understanding the systems and structures that has made a woman to choose to be a sex worker. So this is really profound for me, because when when we are talking to somebody regarding sex workers choosing to be a sex worker, so a lot of this is missed. So this book has helped me understand why how they have been oppressed and kept to be who they are, and how, despite a lot of measures that has been happening, sex workers remain to be seen. So, and also the criminalization of them, and also making them be a victim is something that I have to take away from, and also make the group also understand, because they are also conditioned with the same thoughts that they have been conditioned by the society, that they're also criminals and morally they're wrongdoers. And so this book has helped me to take away and peel away all of the gray layers that had within myself, and also to establish dialogue with the communities to really understand where they're coming from and what they are going through. Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Vinita. Briefly, any comments?
I think PM Anthony is raising his hand. Sham.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Anthony, please go ahead. Were you wanting to say something?
Sorry, it was by mistake actually. Sorry.
Okay, not.
Okay.
No, Vinita, you are very powerful, Vinita. Thanks for sharing something very, very deeply personal as also political.
Shall we move on, Azhar?
Thanks everyone. Can I invite Sebin to come in, please? Sebin is speaking about the banking model of education.
Hi everyone. I'm Sebin. I'm a pediatrician. I work in Vellore in Tamil Nadu. So, Azad, can I request you to share the image, please?
You'll have to give me a minute. You'll have to give me a few seconds, Sebin.
Yeah. So while Azad is going to put up the image, so banking model or banking concept of education definitely has a lot of sub-themes, and I don't think I'll be able to do justice to all of the sub-themes here. So what I thought is that I will pick a few of the sub-themes within it, and also look a bit at the process at which through which we looked at the banking concept of education. So in the Kudam, we had both pre-session as well as post-session reflections. So we were expected to read the portion and reflect on it pre-session as well as post-session. And we also had some exercises. So it was not just an intellectual exercise. The Paulo Freire method of praxis, which you will hear about later. So we were actually trying to practice it while we were reading the book as well. Is the image up?
No, I'm having some wonderful tech troubles. Just give me a few more seconds.
No issues. I'll go ahead. So probably we can share the image later, I suppose. So I was thinking it will be too ironical if I'm talking about banking method of education and I'm just spouting out information without giving an opportunity to look at the image first. But since there's tech trouble, I'm going ahead. So in the banking concept, so
hang on, Sebin, I just got the image.
Image is on that?
Yeah, I'm just sharing the screen. Just give me a second.
Okay, sure. So I'll just give it a while for all of you to look at the image and share what you feel is the main concept or idea here.
Just give me a second. Yeah. Is the screen visible?
Yeah,
yes.
Probably you can zoom a bit. Yeah. Yeah, perfect. So anyone wants to take a go on this?
I think it shows that education is seen more as a product than as a process. It's a product
Okay.
where it's being transferred from one person to another rather than a process where everyone is engaging together.
Yeah, I can see quite a few comments coming in as well. So I think all of these are in line with the banking concept of education. So it is like the bank where we go and make deposits. The teacher is making deposits, and students are passive receptacles, and they are just receiving it, filing it, and storing it, and then they'll have to reproduce it, and that's how the banking method of education rewards them. So when we looked at this, we had a few prompts. So one or two prompts I'll just read out. So one was, how does the banking model of education work or operate in your life? And what is power structure that is holding in place in your life? So one important thing, what many of us realized is that we were all so used to the banking model of education, and it took us actually a while to get used to asking questions and also figuring out the right questions. What are the right questions to ask as well? And even while we were looking at the banking concept of education, there were some of us who were preparing for competitive exams, and there were ideas and concepts which had to be mugged up, and there was this struggle between the idea of education that we dream about, the ideal education that we should have, and the education that we are forced to have, because the power structure that is holding that in place. And we were all looking at how this operates in our daily life. So how it's operating in our interactions with family, with juniors, with trainees, with co-workers. So those of us in the Kudam who are parents, actually they realize that they often use this banking method of education with their own kids. So after the reading, that's what they reflected on. And for some of us who are doctors, who are working in the medical field, we realize that the information flow is almost always unilateral, and we do not usually ask our patients their opinions as to how we can treat you. It is a very often a paternalistic attitude. And I actually remember reflecting on this meme that had come about. There were doctors who used to put up memes saying that do not confuse your Google search with my medical degree. And there were patients who used to put up a counter meme saying that do not confuse that 1 hour lecture that you had in your med school with my experience of living it for the last 20 years. So, whereas it does not have to be silos, the doctors may have the scientific knowledge, whereas the patients have the information about their own lived experience. That actually the syncretism and the synthesis of this coming together should have been the ideal model. But however, it does not work out. And while I was going through reflections, I came across Roshan's reflection, which I thought I should share. So she has mentioned that the doctor-patient relationship that is usually promoted is a paternalistic model, while the patient is the recipient. But the truth is that both are actually experts in their own area, and they should come together and try to find out the ideal solution. And also, when I was looking at reflections again, I thought this is something that I should share. Anu, who is an architect as well as a teacher, she shares about how in the banking model of education, the teacher is considered as the epitome of knowledge, and students are considered as those passive receptacles or empty of knowledge. So this is actually negating education as a process of inquiry, and the teacher is the active subject, and students are just passive subjects who are to be improved upon. So I just read out something which I thought was very practical that she has mentioned in her reflections. So she talks about a 4-year-old child who comes to school already. The child has navigated her own experience, and her mind is active, and she's coming to school. But she is wondering whether we as teachers, we use our experience and stories as resources in her learning journey. And she answers it by a resounding no. And she says that instead of teaching her from her experiences, we are teaching her a stale A for apple in a context where she may not even have seen an apple. But actually, she may be able to name 10 things from her real emotional environment that starts with an A. But there's no space for her to share this with her teacher, because she's told to be quiet, just listen, repeat the stale narrative that has been peddled on for many, many years. And the teacher is actually refusing to relinquish her authority and position as a speaker. And she's not giving the space to become a listener and a student herself or himself. So we can see that in this sort of an education, there is no scope for developing a critical consciousness, and hence there is no scope for leading to transformation of the world. So what is happening is that this passive role is being imposed, and the more the students are accepting it, the more they are adapting to the status quo, and they are only receiving a fragmented view of the reality and not the complete view of the reality. So the banking model of education is actually inhibiting creative power, and the contrary. What is the solution to this? Will be the problem-solving method, which Ria will talk about, problem-posing method that Ria will be talking about shortly. And she will be mentioning about how solidarity requires true communication. So I'll stop here. Over to all of you.
Seven, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Sebin. I'm a pediatrician. I work in Vellore and Tamil Nadu.
Also, quickly for the rest of the Kudam, the reflection that Sebin was sharing were reflections from our own participants throughout the journey of reading the text, writing reflections across the week, and then coming together and sharing and synthesizing our learnings with that of the text. Yeah, go ahead, Yash.
Yeah, I had a question or a predicament sort of to pose, and I'm in my infancy of my academic/teaching career. So I just want to ask this: that in today's times when I mean, this is my experience of teaching, that a majority of students are only in class for notes or for marks, and they want, like in humanities, most of the people want to crack UPSC, and like they and a more demanding teacher sort of who asks students to read more and engage. That teacher is sort of not liked, as opposed to others will straight away give notes. And in private colleges, sort of you have all of these new measures to sort of measure teacher productivity and all of these. So how do we, in such a system, how do we practice a Freirean model of education, like keeping in mind all of these constraints, notwithstanding all the neoliberal assault on or saffron assault on education, and how it manifests in everyday sort of academic spaces. So there are more and more barriers to practice this sort of education model where everyone is engaging in ideas, and yeah, that's.
Thanks, Yash.
Anyone?
No, I think this is I think one of the fundamental questions that was brought up or comes as a result of recent reading. So I think maybe we can spark this question because it's a very important question as such. I would like to right.
We'll also be covering it in the next couple of slides, presentations.
Is that okay, Yash? Sorry, we're sparking a lot of questions.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, Ash, with the type of questions you're asking, we need to have a separate session talking about these things. Because I'm sure Michelle will also say the same thing would be there in terms of right-wing education in the US or South Africa or in UK. Mike is here, Bach. Bach is a Kudam name. He attended our Kudam about a month back. So I think we'll have to come back to these questions. There are no easy answers because the entire system has got screwed up today. So now to start at one point may become very difficult, but we need to start. We need to start putting it in a war language. We need to start the assault. So we'll have to come back to this again. So again, I'm sorry we're continuously saying let's park it. But anyway, thanks, Sebin. You seem to have sparked off a lot of thought in Yash and others. So can we go ahead? Who's next?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, everyone.
Introduce yourself, Ria.
Yeah, so I'm Ria. So I'll introduce myself as Sebin's batchmate. Sebin, his wife who is sitting next to him, and I are batchmates. So as he told about banking model of education, I think we should agree on one thing. We all had fun actually making difficult, funny mnemonics out of of very difficult Latin and Greek words, and Seven was the expert. At least we were very critically conscious about that. So yeah, so just expanding on the problem posing education. So it is to, like, how we reflected during our sessions is to actually reflect on our surroundings, to be more aware of our surroundings, to critically analyze and not just receive knowledge. So during this time when we were discussing, I was actually a facilitator of a program called Young Innovators Program in the medical college which I'm working in. And so it is a initiative of Kerala government to actually engage young minds to think critically. So I had a very hard time actually inspiring students to uh, take part in the exercise. The exercise was very simple. I was very fascinated by it, and I wished I had it during my college days. It was to, they had very lot of spectrums, and the students had to just think about an idea, think about the problem first, think about what the root cause analysis is, and just think of an idea of solution. So since I was a facilitator, I brought in a lot of inspiring stories about people who invented everything, and especially, like, since we were having this session, I got a lot of ideas on problem posing education, to ask questions just to help them critically think and not like pump knowledge. And but it was a very hard challenge, especially it was the education, sorry, it was the exam time, and they were not very keen. But then the submission of idea got extended also, but even after the exams, they were not keen. So I did a reflection with those students. I called them and asked, what is stopping you from doing this? They're like, what is the point of, there is no returns. Banking, since medical education is defined, it is banking model, it has returns. There is a very well carved path in that, and they have returns. While innovative thinking doesn't, it guarantees failures and challenges, and need to be resilient, so it doesn't really have any return. So that was one challenge I faced, and still working on it. And yesterday, just fresh from the yesterday's news. So yesterday I had to, so as a part of this, I had to attend the government meeting yesterday. And so all the big officers from Kerala Startup Mission, the Kerala Medical Consortium Technology, all the top secretaries, the medical education dean, all of them, we were brainstorming how to actually set up innovation and entrepreneur developmental cell in colleges. It is very active in engineering and arts and science college, but medical students are not. It's been hard to actually bring in medical students. So it was a session calling all people from medical professional who are teaching to actually brainstorm how to do this. So 2 points which came out. So I had this idea, like there is a research which is compulsory for medical students. I was thinking if we actually give a pathway on turning this research into an innovation, then students will be more motivated to actually think on it. But that was like shot down by another professor. She said that practically what she said is true. She said this is an exercise to actually teach them methodology. So I was, in my mind, the bubble was like, banking method and problem posing education khichdi both have come together, and neither is working, and it is like a burden. So how do you I mean it seemed like our culture has the DNA of turning even problem posing education methodology into banking model. So then there was the other option of incentivizing, give bonus marks who takes in. So that, luckily, that was also shot down, because some of the officers said it has to actually, innovation is something which has to come from the heart. They have to pursue it. So which was good. So the discussion went on, and just ending on a positive note, the future way forward was like establishing IEDC cells in every district, where students from all sectors, like medical, engineering, and business, can come together and discuss. So hoping for exciting days of discussions and active problem posing education ahead. So yeah, I leave the floor open to any questions. Thank you.
Azad, if you can step up, I think the presentations. So
Sure.
people are dropped. Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe we can have all the later reflections.
Okay. All right. Can we go to the next presentation?
Hi,
Yeah, Michelle?
am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hi. Sorry, apologies for any other noise. I'm at the bus stand and slightly crowded here. Okay. My name is Subhashini, and Azad, can you put up the presentation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Subhashini, you're a teacher. So.
Yeah. I'm working as a teacher at a school in Chennai, and I come from a background of ecological research. But before we get into that, I want us all to take 10 seconds to look at the two images on the page. Then if you can just scroll down and possibly bring both the images in the together.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to do that. I'll just have to scroll one. So
Okay,
I'm just
all right.
stay on this image for 5 seconds, and then I'll go back up to the above image.
All right. Yeah. So this is how most of my classrooms look like. Most of them, because it was not possible to make all classrooms look like this. And yeah, thank you, sir. We can move to the next one. As I was saying before, I come from an ecological research background. And increasingly, I was learning about the politics of biodiversity and conservation. I realized equitable solutions were not in science academia, but they were actually in science classrooms in schools. And that led me to explore the idea of place-based education. Place-based education is something where classrooms are conducted where students learn about the place where they are from and everything in relation to the place. And this actually led me to discover the idea of critical consciousness, and which led to Freire. So that is how I got to know about the book Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And I started conducting. Azar, if you can go to the next page, please. So, as a pilot project, I conducted place-based education sessions for a period of 6 months for the grades from grade 6 to grade 10. And this was conducted through the lens of the Samachir curriculum, that is the state curriculum of Tamil Nadu. And it was on an experimental basis. I realized there was a huge transformation in the way children were looking at their environment, at their culture, and the immediate economic and socio-political aspects of it. However, over the course of the study, I realized that I had missed an important aspect of education, which was education is always a community-based approach. So I had missed out the other factors like the parents, teachers, the other teachers who had an influence on children, and the community, which also plays a huge role or influences the way a child is getting educated. If we can scroll down, I'll just quickly highlight what are some of the influences this had. So I'm definitely going to continue this way of teaching in my classrooms. However, the influence of Kudam has been to have better clarity and language to act and reflect on various teaching methodologies which involves not just me as a teacher, but other teachers around me and the community who involves a child's growth and development. Uh, and also how to integrate it into the curriculum that already exists and something that child is familiar with, and to bring about transformation through that. If we can go to the last line, please. So the topic of my presentation today is actually the word called praxis. So praxis is the idea of action and reflection that will result in transformation through work. If we can move to the next page, there are multiple elements that Freire talks about are important attributes in order to carry out true word. Azad, would it be possible to zoom out and have all the elements? Okay. Just the third page.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm doing a poor
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, that's okay. Happens. These are the various elements that Freire talks about are attributes, which is going to involve practice or true work. I'm going to leave this over here for any comments or questions, and if anybody wants to add anything to this, please. Thank you, Robert. Can you go to the next presentation?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
In the interest of time, you can move into the next presentation. I'm done.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone who'd like to respond very briefly? Otherwise, we'll move to the next presentation. Okay, can we go ahead? Ubu, is that you next?
Yeah, I'm here. Would you be able to share my presentation?
Yes. So this is the final presentation, is that right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So my name is Anand. I teach in Christian Medical College in Vellore. So I teach medicine and been teaching for 30 years. And obviously Freire figures in literature in medical education. But my experience of reading Freire provided me a depth to understanding critical thinking in education. And I want to share how the reading has directly impacted on my teaching. Can we have the next slide? So can we come to the previous slide?
Yes.
Okay, so at the end of the first chapter of the book, one exercise that we were given was to walk around our town and to look for people who are invisible to us. Ask the question, what are their lives like and why are they invisible to you? And what does that mean for you? So I did this near my father's house, and this was an Ambedkar colony, that is a Dalit colony, and I could see the structure of the relationship between a gated community and a lower caste community. This led me to do work with the second year medical students, which was essentially the same project, to ask them to wander around, make friends with somebody who's invisible, and tell their story. Can you have the next slide? These are pictures of, you can see a homeless lady who's been 40 years on the street in Vellore, a couple which makes chart, a person who repairs cycles, who sells corn. And I want to, can you go to the next slide? One of the students had done poorly in a particular exam and was wandering around the town in the middle of the night and encountered a hawker and wrote this poem. And I'm just going to read it to you. On an enchanting evening in Vellore, besides the humongous fort stood a solitary hawker selling toys in the majestic streets of Vellore. He showed me his decor things, his face wrinkled with experience, hands full of toil, and with a gleaming smile. He strangled when he said that he lived in a rented house when earlier he was a builder of gorgeous buildings. The disastrous pandemic derailed his livelihood and is now struggling for his existence. A soul which stood for him, that is his wife, couldn't stand now due to the demons of diabetes, which burnt away her soul with pain, scarred her feet, too expensive to treat. His muffled voice told a gloomy tale. Now, this is just an example of the stories that students brought back, looking at people who were earlier invisible to them. Next slide. Now, we did a small reflection process on this with the students, and these are some of the things that the students said. We learned about invisibility, that there are thousands of individuals who are hidden from our view. And everybody has a story to tell. The person on the street or the person in the hospital is not just somebody, but somebody with a story. And another student said that this helped them start analyzing and knowing the importance of life situations. Another student said that these unknown people might need ears to listen to, hands to help, eyes to see their problems, and care and sensation to feel their pain and sufferings. And even though I was put out of my comfort zone, to go and approach a stranger, I think was worth it. Next slide. Now, I thought I understood something about Freire's action and reflection cycle, but this reading has provided a depth for me in the way I teach. And this is an example of being able to dialogue with students in a problem-posing mode to think about what is the structure of oppression which leads to dehumanization and what leads to invisibility. Another idea was to see how is a doctor a friend to a person or a community. Listening to stories and learning from them, reflecting on them, and through that emerging action, the idea of praxis. Freire also talks about this idea of this teacher-student and the student-teacher, that we both learn from this. And this dialogical process became very alive to me in this exercise and in my teaching today. And more than all this, Freire reading provided a language to articulate what I was doing in education, both with my students and with my colleagues. So as a teacher of 30 years, Freire came to me alive with new ideas which are implicating in my work, and I feel that Freire can offer a powerful tool and ideas for people who are working in education.
Thanks very much, Ubu. We have maybe a couple of reflections from the Kudam.
Joan says she's leaving. Joan, would you like to share your views before you leave? As somebody who was part of the anti-apartheid struggles and later struggles.
I just want to say I am so deeply moved and I feel privileged to have been with you, trying to capture some of your deep experience over so long. And you've inspired, and I'm reminded again, and you have brought Freire to life for me again. So I want to say thank you. What a privilege to be with you and leave inspired.
Thanks, John. Thanks.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry I have to go, but thank you.
No, but it's fantastic you attended. Yeah, thank you.
My thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks to all who are posting their contact details in the chat. You can also send us an email. I had shared the our email ID earlier, and you can visit our website as well. Yeah. If there are no more reflections from the Kudam as of now, then we'll move to the next section of today's meeting.
Should I go ahead, Azan?
Go ahead, Rio. Thank you.
Thanks for everybody who's been so patient and sitting through such complex and dense topics. But I think also I feel really proud to be part of a Kudam who so creatively sort of explained these dense concepts. I mean, I think its explanation themselves were Freirean in their best. So with this, I come to the final part of our presentations, which is dialogic method or the problem posing method that Freire sort of coined or invented. Essentially, in the banking model, there's a hierarchy that's there between the teacher and the student, not only of title but also of power and control they have over knowledge. So Freire's method of dialogic method or problem posing method seeks to break that hierarchy, not only in how the teacher and student are called, but also in the roles that they play. So a teacher becomes a facilitator and a student becomes a learner. And knowledge is not transmitted one way, like Sebin mentioned, but rather it's co-created in a process of dialogue, in a process of two-way communication between the two. And this dialogue is also rooted deeply in four values that Freire talks about in later chapters, that of faith in humanity, in people's volition to humanize and be humanized, an essential love for humanity, not the romantic love that we're used to seeing in films or movies, but a deep love for humanity and humanity's desire to do good, a sense of humility that says that I may know more knowledge because of my experience or my location or my power, but I still respect the lived experience somebody else has and not impose my knowledge on them, but rather try to weave in my knowledge through their lived experience. And finally, an element of critical thinking, because without critical thinking, what's the point of education? It's not just learning to be literate, but it's to be educated, to see the world for what it is, to move beyond the illusions that's presented to us through this banking model, and to embrace reality for what it is. So essentially, Freire's dialogic method, we will now, five of us will play, a couple of us will play three roles in the certain role play of this dialogic method. Two of us, me and Sam, we would be playing the role of who would use a particular cartoon or a poster to start the dialogic method. Ravi, Akshay, and Sabu, they would be playing the role of learners who would be asked these questions, and they would try to unravel reality, which is apparent, which is not apparent at first, but which will become more clear as we go through the process. And finally, this third set of people, Ubu, Sri Lakshmi, and Vikash, who would try to sort of cull out the key points of the dialogic method and connect it back to all the concepts we saw so far. Essentially, Paulo Freire's book is not just theory, but it's rooted in praxis. So with that, I'll invite Azad to spotlight us and share the screen with the card. Sam or the others, anything you want to add, please do. Azad, can you also spotlight Sam and share the screen?
Yeah.
Should I share the picture, Azad?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can you all see this picture?
Yes, we can see the image.
Okay. Sam, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Hello, Kudam. So, for questions for our learners to respond to, my question would be a very basic one to start off with. What do you see in this photograph? If you could describe it for me.
Sam, if you could speak into your speaker and a little louder.
Sorry, I think my speaker went inside my clothes. Let me repeat that. A very basic question to begin with for our learners and for the Kudam. What do you see in this photograph? Could you describe it for us? Prachi Mishra says a protest. Could our learners respond to this question? That would be nice.
I'll go. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I see young men being forced to sit on the ground and being sprayed with disinfectants. And I remember the picture, it was during the beginning of COVID. They were all forced to go back home, and before their entry into their respective states, they were sprayed with disinfectants.
Yeah.
So for me, I see this like a group of people being mistreated or probably being very unhumanly treated by a small group of people. So I was trying to see, I mean, knowing the context, I always said like, it looks very straightforward. But then trying to see if it's not the context of COVID, how does it look like? So it looks like some people just trying to protest on something, and look at the number of people who are actually sitting on the right side, who are actually being treated with water. It's a big number, about more than 50 people. And here there are only 4 or 5 people who are probably like dominating and actually having power in their hands. So it looks like a very strong, a small group of people treating a large group of people and controlling them, mistreating them, all that.
So who are these small group of people? From their look, from their clothes, or from their attitude, can you think of who they are, where they come from, or why they're there in the street?
So obviously they're not from the same group because one is addressed differently. Probably they're scared of something, or like in this case the COVID. So they're trying to protect themselves, but then they're not worried about what happens to this large group of people who are not protected. So it's obviously like a different group. It could be a different a class, caste, anything. But then it's a definitely a small different group of people who have power here. Sabu and Akshay, can you join?
Yeah, it's when children are made to sit like that during in school as punishment. It's a very dehumanizing watch, and to make adults sit like that is even more dehumanizing. And
Akshay, are you there? Can you join?
Okay. Yes, as she said it, the people who are sitting are dehumanized to that extent. As we did in the first phase of COVID, when everyone was so paranoid that uh, like the normal product, the things that we bring into the house, first we used to spray with this kind of disinfectant, and then we used to touch it, and then we used to use it. And to that extent, these people, these people who are sitting have been dehumanized.
Sridharan, you also want to speak? Have your hand raised?
Yeah, I want to say something. In this image, I can see the people have been disinfected in the middle of a road. You can see a vehicle there, and they are forced to be disinfected. Probably these people are from middle class, I mean daily wages. So they are forced to be disinfected because they were returning to their state or somewhere. But they were in the middle of the road and they were ill treated with this. We can show in a drastic manner that they were disinfecting through a pipeline, not through any sanitizer or and not in a regular manner, conventional manner. It was unconventional and ill-treating. I can see in those images.
And all of you mentioned the context of COVID, where the virus was spreading. So why do you think these people are on the road? Or why do you think they had to go home or walk on the streets like this? Did they not know the rules?
Can I?
Go ahead, go ahead.
I feel that because I saw in my house is just near to Kolkata highways. I can see lot of people who are returning to their house because there was closure of lot of industries, functioning industries. As they are daily wages, when the industry is closed, they have no other alternate for their food, for the daily food. So they were returning back. So this may be the context for a question.
Yeah, can I
Go
pitch
for
in?
it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I think it's obvious, it's very obvious that we all know that no, the poorest of the poor actually are forced to migrate. Many of them do seasonal migration because during rains or drought or something, when there are no rains, people are forced to migrate. Landless laborers are forced to migrate because no to whatever for their livelihood, and that's what happened here. And when suddenly, all of a sudden, when those in power said complete lockdown, they didn't have a choice but to start walking long distances, when there's no train or bus to go back home. So obviously these are the poorest of the poor. If somebody had enough money to hire a cab, or had a bike or a car of their own, they would have gone home without any fuss. These are people who didn't have any other choice, any other vehicle to go back home. And obviously here it shows a very clear the oppressed and the oppressor, the power and the powerless and the powerful. No, things like that. It's very obvious. The rich and the poor. So
Thanks, Ravi. One last question, one last couple of questions. So why do you think they had to move? If they knew that COVID virus was out, would they not be worried about their safety and other safety? Why did they have to move? Others can also respond.
Can you come up with the question again, Ryu?
Yeah. So why did they have to travel? It was already locked down. It was COVID. We didn't have protective equipment. Why do you think they had to travel?
So asking why the poor people had to migrate, walk back home.
Yes. Why could they not stay put where they were and observe the protocols? Did they not know about them, or was there something else preventing them from staying?
I'll just finish in a quick 1 minute thing, and then rest can join. See, this is a very common thing that we see here. We work with the tribal community here. So there's one common thing that we see is when there's a problem, when there's sickness, when there's any crisis, people tend to go back home from wherever they are working. So it's obvious that people here, wherever they go to work, any city like Bangalore, Delhi, Calcutta, wherever, they don't really belong there. Even if they have stayed there for years together, they're not really integrated there. They are just still like they live in their own bubble, trying to make a living. In a crisis, they are nobody. They're like not considered by anybody as whatever. They're left without any support system. So they are forced to migrate, I would say, and home is the only place they could go back to. So obviously they had to take this long, hardest, very, very strenuous effort of walking long distances back home.
Should I read out the responses that came in the chat?
Go for it.
Tanika is saying, so contradictory also in the COVID context, being sprayed with disinfectant but huddled up so closely. Akash said they had no choice. They can't afford the city. Yash Javeri said many of them were quoted saying that hunger was a bigger killer than COVID for them during the lockdown. Shaheen said you have to earn and eat to survive. That was a bigger need than safety.
Yeah.
There were lots of responses actually. Moto is saying no food, no work, no protection. They felt home would be better. And Shirley Geraldine said linking the Maslow's hierarchy of needs for these people, their basic physiological needs itself are not met. And how could they think about safety, which comes higher in the needs? Gayatri Sharma said, not sure they had a place to stay at all. Most stay at the site of work, and with severe restrictions and no address proof, they had no choice but to go home. That's true. That's really true. And the fact, something that Ravi also mentioned, that there were many other people who traveled for emergency at the time, and they were not treated the same way as migrant workers who were going home were treated. So my next question is, why was this tolerated? Why did the people sit there and tolerate this?
And if I can add one more question, in this picture, it's showing state machinery or the people with the PPE and the migrants in the picture. Are we also a part of this crisis? Did we also play a part in this thing happening?
Seba, you want to take it? Or Akshay?
Sorry, can you repeat what you said? I couldn't follow it.
Last question is that, are we a part of this crisis? Is it only the PPE person and the migrants who are involved in this?
Yes, of course, we are also. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, we are part of it in the context that we do get the benefits of migrant labor being a cheap source of labor. So, like when you, so it does reflect on us as a society. If a large part of people don't have any amount of security over their lives, yeah, like we are also definitely responsible and
Thanks, Shava. Maybe one more response and we can close the space and invite reflections.
I think, Sainthan, numbers are dropping.
No, the activity is done. We can open it up for reflections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So, like, I hope I understand the question. Like, how the migrant laborers have been affected by this COVID crisis. Like, I'm also got affected by this COVID crisis because in my office, they have forced me to take vaccines, both the dose, and they stopped my salary and they told that it's just compulsory. And even after taking COVID vaccine, some of my colleagues got infected. I mean, they were asking about the question, but there is no proper response from the anyone because no one have no idea. So I took 2 doses of vaccines. Still, I don't feel I'm muted. I mean, I'm immune to the virus. I'm done. Thank you.
Rayu, can I come in?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so this was just a demonstration of the dialogical method, less about COVID, but more about how do we frame questions? How do we frame a dialogue? These are things in which Freire has been particularly impactful in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and in the late 90s. So he makes a distinction between problem-solving method and problem-posing method. We are also used to problem-solving. You're given a problem and then we work around to find a solution to it. Instead of problem-posing, by which the fundamental issue is how do we ask the right question? Okay, and asking the right question leads to the right form of analysis in a critical method in which you are looking at an issue in its wider context, an issue in the context of social, economic, political, cultural, and other dimensions. So here in this particular exercise we did now, this was completely on the spot. So it's not that we had worked on this before. The questions came as it was. One of the issues would be if you were to show this question to various people. Now, Giridharan immediately responded saying, I was affected. This is what happened to me. It's raising fundamental issues. And then the next question becomes very important. Who are the people who are doing like this? Who are the ones who face problems like this? Are everybody sprayed? I think they used DDT at that time to spray, but they didn't know what else to do. And there was a big controversy over spraying in that form, mass form in Uttar Pradesh. Then the one set of questions will then go ask about who are the migrant labor? Why are they migrating? Some parts which Ravi had talked about. Okay, what is the status? Is there any difference between these migrant labor and laborers from a locality itself? That way asking questions which lead to more questions, which leads to more and deeper understanding of issues. This is a particular method that Freire had worked on and had expanded, which also becomes a basis for the study class that we did. So towards part of the thing, the whole question boiled down to how do we ask questions so that we can deepen our own understanding. Many times we ask questions by giving answers. And now, while the answers are necessary, what happens is, does it help greater critical engagement? That would be the method by which we look at how do we ask the process of questioning and the dialogical method. How do you enter into a dialogue with others? Freire makes a distinction that dialogue is not conversation. Dialogue is the ability to spar with somebody who may have a contrary view to you. In which case, how do you therefore ask those questions? So what we just saw now was just one small demonstration of the method that we followed, which we wanted to sort of share with you all. Yes, are we part of the system? Which part of the system are we? These are questions that we need to ask. And this particular session is only to showcase some part of it. More and more understanding deeper discussion and analysis helps us to understand this process a little better. But we just thought we'll give you a snapshot or a taste of how the last 16 weeks has been.
Can you also add a quick point?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the way we started the Freire's book, it started with dehumanization, oppressor, oppressed. Then it slowly moved towards education. Now one might wonder what's the link between the two. So for Paulo Freire, this method is not only to be done in schools or in classrooms or educational context, but this method is basically teaching people to look at the world by learning to look at the word. So Freire calls it learning to look at the world through learning to read the word. So essentially, this way of education is not only to make people literate, but also help them make fundamental assumptions of reality, which is sort of masked by the education that they are. So what could be basically a teaching method in a classroom basically doubles up as a powerful tool for liberation and organizing classes.
Thanks, Liu. With it, the presentation part is over. It's now open to all of you to share your opinions, not just the few of us who've spoken. Yeah. Bach, would you like to talk?
Yeah, I know I've been a bit quiet. I mean, I know there's an election just started in India, and I'm just wondering, if everybody had read the book and understood the book, would it affect the way that they voted?
I will let others gone through it to answer that. Go ahead, Tanika.
Hello. It's
Yeah, Vidya, go ahead.
Go ahead, Vidya.
Yeah. So I was just thinking a few weeks ago, I just made a new friend, and then we were just discussing, and then I realized she's in the opposite. She was in the opposite party kind of thing, and as she was speaking and hero worshipping that person, I could not handle it. I was like boiling inside to reply and all that. So, but I just kept quiet, and I was trying to understand how it came to be. And then I thought that, why am I thinking I'm right? Like, why do I think my thought is right and she is wrong, and why do I have to get so offended? So just then, when I was thinking how to establish a dialogue, if I am establishing a dialogue, am I trying to change her mind is another question which is coming. And then if we are establishing a dialogue, it will take a lot of time to together come to a consensus. And the thing, my concern is, it takes a lot of time engaging in this dialogue, and it's like there is no road. I mean, it's proper, you can go anywhere, and so it's kind of a little bit, I don't want to use that word, but it's kind of discouraging to start a dialogue like this, because we don't know where it's going to go and what we are going to learn through that. So that's what I was thinking. And I did not engage in changing somebody's mind. Maybe previously I would have thought of engaging in an argument, trying to change their mind and all that. I did not do
Let's
anything.
hear others also. Some more.
Yeah.
I think the points are very important. Am I trying to change their mind? If so, do I have the right to do it? I think these are the questions you are raising.
Yeah. And the time it takes to come together and think together.
So the corollary to it is, if it's going to take long time, let me not get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Okay,
can be discouraging.
we'll park that question. Let's get others to talk. Bark had a very specific question. If this type of critical education had been there, would it make a difference to to the way people vote? What do the others feel?
I feel it definitely does. Yeah. Sorry, Anand, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ravi.
Okay, I feel it definitely does because reading the book made me realize how little dialogue is happening nowadays in our policy making and all that. So it's absolutely taken over and doing what they want. It's even just to look at a very simple way of how things are being managed now at different levels in the government. So it definitely does affect our idea of voting or who to vote and what to do kind of thing.
On my last day at City Lingi, I visited. Sorry.
Go ahead, Bart. Giri, can you put off your mic?
Yeah, on my last day at City Lingi, I visited the school, and Vanya and one of the teachers, whose name, it was something like, does anybody know the names of the very small teacher?
Shweta, was it?
Yes. And I had a long chat, and she explained about, how the small children are taught in a kind of philosophical way, and she mentioned the name of a book, and I wish I could remember it. And maybe if somebody would, Ravi, would you ask her to let me know what the name of the book was that she mentioned? That is, yeah. But my question, if I think about that school and the way those children were being taught, I'm guessing that it would make a difference.
Yeah. Yash has a point.
Yeah, Yash and then Akash.
I wanted to ask that in the Freirean dialogical method, or even the Socratic dialogical method, what is the place of violence? Because in the situation that we are in, say sort of in the Middle East or otherwise, a lot of activists and others would suggest that the state, because it enjoys a monopoly of violence, has sort of delegitimized resistance movements using violence, and obviously your violence is defined in a very sort of narrow way. But how do we sort of in this process of dialogue, how do we think about violence or the question of violence?
Akash, do you want to share?
Should we respond to Yash?
Yeah, Akash actually dropped off. Okay, we can respond to Yash in the meantime. Yes.
Akash is back. Akash, you had dropped out briefly. You had your hand up. Would you like to share?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. So my question is unrelated to what Yash said. It's just it's a question for an earlier slide. Is that okay if I can go with that?
Go ahead. This is open session now.
Yeah, so I was wondering, I don't know whose slide it was, but I was wondering how I treat my house help or every other laborer I hire for odd or skill jobs. I kind of hear I'm the oppressor because I grudgingly part with the house help salary. I'm unwilling to give them holidays. I tire when they don't show up, but I still expect all these privileges from my employer and do get also. I do not want to part with my wealth, and even though I'm being the oppressor, why should I not negotiate a better deal for myself? Isn't self-preservation a fundamental emotion every human has and is almost reactionary? Like, isn't it the oppressed who must coalesce and barter for a better deal? Like how at my old apartment, it's an example, house helps, and the laborers there had formed sort of like a cabal and demanded a decent salary, knowing that the community had the means to pay the wages they deserve. Right? And some grudgingly succumbed while others decided to hire outside the community. In the end, everyone is happy. And here I'm still the oppressor. Why is this bad? So that thought came.
Akash, I'm tempted now to come into the role of the facilitator here. The words you used are very provocative. Provocative, not in the wrong sense. In the way you put it, I'm just saying. See, these are the questions we raise in this method to help. And many people here don't think that you are alone. Many of us are in the same boat. When we want something for us, we deny that to people to whom we are the boss or we are in control over. Now, this is precisely the type of issue that Freire raises his point, that of conditioning, I think the earlier part of the thing, that we are conditioned to look at ourselves in a specific way. And Yash's question about violence also goes back to that. What is it that we truly believe in terms of each other, even with somebody who's seen as an enemy to us? And he says the distinction between people who are wanting to create a new society. In fact, he talks about education as a process of liberation and education as a process of freedom. And this does not obviously happen in schools and colleges. It happens everywhere. So to put both of your questions together, Yash and your other thing, would be that when in the process of change, you're not romantic, saying, no, you beat me on my cheek, I'll show you my other cheek. Not that type of an ethic. But you understand that specific behaviors and specific political choices are made by people in power based on structural reasons. You have to tackle that at the structural level. At the same time, what motivates you is not a sense of revenge. It's not a sense of avenging, both revenge and avenging, but a sense of creating a new society, which is based on humane values, which is based on creating an egalitarian relationship. So, Yash, on that question of violence, what is important is to understand the context and the social responses it creates. But the aim, if the aim is for you to come to power again, you are no different from the earlier person. If the aim is to create a more humane society, then there's a different starting point from which you are entering into this discussion. You're conscious about the reality that the oppressor is going to use power against you. Okay, and oppressor need not be some far away or some very, very rich guy. It could be your local administrator. It could be anybody. It could be you to people under you. So the other question is, yes, we tend to put people down, and how is that different from a big corporate guy or a big landlord who's oppressing others? These questions we can't run away. And I think that's a question that Vinuta was saying. Many of these questions are uncomfortable because it focuses on us. It asks you the question, where are you in this dynamics? Okay. So while you want change somewhere else for them, what about you? Are you changing? What is your ethic? I'm using the word ethic and not morality, because morality has got confused with religion. I'm using the word ethic as a democratic ethic or a humanistic ethic. Okay. Now, do the same reasons that you are demanding as change apply to you also? Throughout the book and throughout our reading process, that was a question. And I'd also like to clarify one thing. We are not trying to either romanticize a book or to make the book as know-all for everything. The book is a starting point for looking into a lot of these issues. So Yash and who asked the question?
Akash.
Yeah, Akash.
Yeah,
but I'm glad you raised this issue, Akash, because many of us from our backgrounds are very comfortable not raising such questions. Thanks for raising that.
Yeah, sure.
Others, reflections, questions you have, responses?
Will the recording be available?
Sure. Bark, we were thinking you want to give us a bigger bark today. Okay.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Sorry. No, I just want to quickly add to what Nanda was saying about to Yash and to Akash. So Freire does clearly talk about violence in the book. He does dedicate a lot of space for it. He talks about how violence is the existing status quo is in itself a violent form of structure which perpetuates violence in every day. And he also talks about the oppressor violence and the oppressed violence, which comes as a response to the violence of the oppressor. So yeah, reading the book would give better insight. And Akash, just interesting. I just noticed you used the word cabal when you spoke about how the laborers and the maids came together, collectivized to earn better wages. That was very interesting. Yeah, and I think he also talks about how structures demand us to be in different levels, partake in the system of oppression because of our access to resources and our dependence on the structure. There is a requirement of individual change, which Freire talks about when we are working towards change. But individual change in itself does not mean the structures have been changed. So I think there is a dialectical relationship between both. You can't forego one for the other. That's it. Thank you.
Subhashri, you have anything to ask or share?
I was just going to share. So one of the things that I've participated in a few sessions, but even those few sessions has brought home almost the critical role that these power structures play out in the early formative years of life within the family, the relationship between the parent and child, the relationship between the child and the teacher. So the first 17 years of a child's life, the amount of oppression and power that the child is subjected to, both in a coercive manner as well as in the form of just environmental conditioning. Conditioning based on love, conditioning based on expectations. All of this, I think, it is a starting point for conditioning a small human being's thought process to the point that by the time they go out into the world, they're thoroughly conditioned. And I find that it's critical to address these imbalances in these relationships within the home and within ourselves and within our relationships where we can very easily apply power. It's very easy to apply power over a child. So I think we have to be very careful about what we do there. And that was one of the key realizations from this book for me.
Thanks, Subhashri. Anybody else who's attending this session for the first time? We'll need to wind up now shortly.
Yeah. I am attending this session for first time. Myself, Muriyasa Pandian, Tamil Nadu Science Forum, Krishnagiri district. I am living in Osur. Yeah.
Thanks, sir. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I'll be tomorrow. I'll send the mail so that we will get connected. Yeah.
Sure. Any reflections, sir?
Yeah, it's correct. That some of the one teacher has shared the place-based education. No, That was a nice concept. Like that, okay, some innovations are coming in this group. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay.
Murugesh Pandit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, as we wind up, Jasmeet was part of an earlier Freire reading class. Jasmeet, would you want to share something?
Hi. Thank you. I really appreciated coming back and touching base with the ideas of Freire, and we're attempting to have similar conversations with educators in Delhi and the people that we work with, and it's not easy. I think it's just hard to even understand our own power structures. So it's a struggle, and I'm just glad for these circles that bring me back to why the need is there. So thank you, Suresh.
Yeah. Good, you came as a bridge with the various kudams we have created in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Any of the others? Shirley? Dharnidharan has raised his hand.
Hi, this is Jayasudha.
Yeah.
Hi, Nanba.
Hi.
So I'm just stuck with the previous slide and the sanit. I mean, I'll share in Tamil.
Yeah,
Please
please.
come, someone please translate. So அந்த ஸ்லைட்லயே நான் ரொம்ப ஸ்டக் ஆயிட்டேன். ஏன்னா அது என்ன ரொம்ப ப்ரொவோக் பண்ணிடுச்சு. பிகாஸ் அந்த டைம்ல நிறைய பேர் வேற வேற பார்ட் ஐ மீன் வேர்ல்ட்ல வேற வேற இடத்துல இருந்து டிராவல் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தாங்க. ஆனா அவங்க எல்லாருக்கும் அதே மாதிரி பண்ணாங்களான்னா இல்ல. ஸோ ஜஸ்ட் பிகாஸ் இவங்க அந்த ப்ரிவிலேஜ் இல்லைன்றதுனால இவங்க ரொம்ப மிஸ்ட்ரீட் பண்ணாங்கன்றதான் என் மைண்ட்ல தோணிட்டே இருந்துச்சு. இதுவே முன்னாடியா இருந்தா நானும் இவங்க ஏன் கோவிட்ல வெளில போறாங்க அப்படின்ற மாதிரி தான் எனக்கு தோணி இருக்கும். பட் இப்போ வந்து என்னால அது எம்பத்தைஸ் பண்ண முடியுது. ஸோ அதுதான் நான் ஷேர் பண்ணணும்னு நினைக்கிறேன்.
Vikash, will you go? Yeah.
So Jay was talking about the image that we were discussing about earlier about the migrant workers being treated in an indignified manner by the state. She was saying that stayed with her because before engaging with this process, she might have also responded in a way which would not have taken into consideration their situation, their life, their tribulations, and ask questions like why are they not following the protocols, and why are they outside in the street when they know that there's COVID and there's issues. But now, after having gone through the process, after having read Freire, she can start looking at the context that people come from and the reasons why people what they do and the reason why they're outside staying despite life-threatening situations. Jay, should I add anything?
That's it, because and also இதுவே மீன் ஃப்ளைட்ல டிராவல் பண்றவங்களுக்கு இதே பண்ணுவீங்களா? ரன்அவேல உட்கார வச்சு இது மாதிரி ஸ்ப்ரே பண்ணுவீங்களா அப்படின்னு எனக்கு தோணுச்சு. So that's it.
I think she's also asking a question directed to the state, I guess. Will you do the same to someone traveling in a flight, to someone who's wealthy or someone coming from the comfortable classes?
Vikash, the same way some of the others have asked here, let's not ask it to with the state. Let's ask it for ourselves. Will we respond differently if it was done in an airport, as done in a station, or as done on the road? I think we all need to ask ourselves the question: what is the conditioning we have had, and what is the red rag we keep responding to? I think those are the questions which also is behind what Jayasudha was asking.
Yeah, I think, yeah, thanks, Namba. I think that's also something that we should think about in the context of what's happening with Indian Railways today. You see multiple tweets that the middle class and the upper middle class are suddenly coming up with when people who are traveling in unreserved and general compartment are being their lives are being made difficult by cutting down on that, and now they are coming into the AC coaches, and then suddenly the comfortable class are waking up to the issue.
Yeah. Okay. I think we need to close now. It's gone on for 2.5 hours. I just want to end up by telling sort of sharing with you all 2-3 things. We would like to continue the study class. And if any of you are wanting to anchor it in the spaces that you're doing it, we could help out with sharing with you the detailed lesson plans that we have created. I've conducted this Freire study for many, many years. This particular class was special because we were also, we had a fantastic creative Kudam, which forced all of us to be very creative, at the same time be very innovative in our teaching method. So we would like to share it with all others. If you want to do, for example, Bark, if you want to do it with the doctors in the UK, we would very much love to help you, and we will adapt it so that it addresses issues of people in the UK. And I'm just an example to tell you. So that is one thing that we would like to start out with. We have, depending on the number of people who are willing to join, we are also open to the idea of starting newer Freire study circles to continue this process. And our greatest success would be if each of you takes it up in your own locations and do it independently. We can handhold you with that. I mean, that's the best way we can carry the thought forward. That's one. Second is, the method that we follow is very unusual. When I entered into the political scene 40 years back, there were a lot more people than there are now. Freirean method and the method of what is called experiential learning, very, very few people. We are planning to have a workshop, a training of trainers workshop, precisely to teach people about this method sometime in August. We've been talking about it for the last 2 to 3 years. We just put it off all the time. But now I think we have a critical mass of people who have been wanting to be trained in this method. We are planning to have this method, have a specific workshop precisely on how do we take this type of critical learning or critical pedagogy forward, wherever we are. It does not matter where we are. It does not matter whether you're an activist, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, or you're just a citizen. The method, if you know, then you can take it creatively wherever we are doing, in whatever manner we are doing. And we would like to expand the number of people who are trained in this. There's a certain training which goes behind it, which we would like to do. Number of you have asked if there's a Tamil translation of the book. Ravi? Yes, there is a translation in Tamil. It's, if the English book is difficult to read, because please keep in mind it's written in Portuguese, translated into Spanish, translated into English. You know, so, and very clunky language. This is the language of the 1960s, when you're thinking polemical. Okay,
Yeah.
So that is a big difficulty. Many people have gone through reading this earlier, but many have dropped out or could not understand. In Tamil, it's still worse. It's extremely difficult. So we had one Kudam about 2 years back, only for Tamil-speaking people. I'm a Tamilian, so I can speak Tamil. So we had a separate thing where we read the whole book in Tamil. I mean, in English, but translated into Tamil at every stage. So if that would answer you, Ravi, if maybe you can.
Thanks.
Simpler Tamil, that would be good. I know it has been translated into many languages in India. Now, I do not know about the quality of the translation in, say, Marathi or Hindi or Bengali or Telugu or Kannada. And in India, there's so many languages. So I don't know about that. But if somebody is wanting to go ahead, we can definitely help, share our ideas, share our insights, that we are definitely willing to do wherever and whenever any of you want to take it up in your own spaces. These are the two things that we thought we will share with you as to possible ways to take it forward. Over to you, Ryu and Azad.
Thanks, Nanba. Thank you very much. I just wanted to share that in the past few years, we've had so many Kudams across the country. We've had even more so in the past, if we go back, 15 to 20 years. As we move forward, Barefoot Academy has been thinking about what would be the next step, and how can we make these kudams even more vibrant, even more connected, where we can have cross-pollination of learnings, where ideas in one kudam can spark action in another, and the kudams can become broader spaces for critical thinking, some of the issues that we explore today, and together come with collaborative, possibly transforming change, possibly transforming action. So to that end, Barefoot Academy is working, is going to be working now very soon. You'll be hearing from us. We are talking about building a Kudam community, a broader Kudam community, which connects all of these different Kudams. And of course, in such a Kudam community, we would very much like all of you to take part, enrich it and nourish it going forward. So we've had online Kudams, we've had offline Kudams, Kudams specifically with medical professionals and educators and so on. Can we find a way to come together, even at smaller points or larger points? We've just had a fantastic workshop conducted very successfully with medical professionals, which we call Govern H, where we study the political economy of health. That Kudam is now moving forward to address very serious issues at high levels in the country, talking about what they can do in response to a Supreme Court case. We've had other examples from other Kudams. Can we learn from each other and build democracy together to facilitate large-scale change? Is what is an idea, which is a proposal from us, and something that we'd like to work on tomorrow onwards. Just wanted to share that. We owe this lovely image to Gayatri, who I believe is in the Kudam with us now.
Oh, thanks, Gayatri.
I was just going to ask who was responsible for that brilliant cartoon. Yeah.
Thanks, G2. Go ahead, you say something.
Gayatri, if you could just open your video and just say what went behind this. It's beautiful.
Thanks, Suresh, and I'm just grateful that I get these opportunities sometimes from the Kudam and from governance, that I can, use my brain and create these illustrations. The thing is that I got a sort of short brief from Azad that said that the same thing that he said, that we've had so many different Kudams with so many different kinds of people in different methods. And the idea is to have some kind of, like you said, cross-pollination and cross-learning, and bring some kind of community together, have solidarity and collaboration. So this I attempted to make, I had little time to do it, so it's a little untidy. I feel a little embarrassed, but it's a continuous line drawing. And I've attempted to say that the continuous line drawing is a way to express the collaboration and the solidarity. And the idea is that a few people from each Kudam can take learnings from each discussion and then maybe come together. And then it can be a conglomeration of all our ideas and hopefully lead to some kind of collective critical thinking that will translate into action. So that's the idea behind this. Thank you so much for letting me do this.
Thanks, Gayatri. That's wonderful. As we're ending, I think, Anu, are you feeling okay to talking? Are you feeling a little better to talk? Or you can get Krishna to read what you wrote.
I put it on the chat. Sorry. Yeah.
No. If you can just read 2 lines of it, that'll be nice.
Yeah, one. I'll try. Which part, Suresh?
Whichever. Or you can get Krishna to read it.
Okay. I was saying I struggle to express how valuable it has been to me and how much I have learned and grown in the process.
Yeah.
The Friday night Freire study session and the amazing way it was organized, the inspiringly high level of engagement of so many of my co-participants were all silver linings on the dark clouds of conflict, strife, and war, corruption and dictatorships all around us. Through them, I found a seed of hope and solidarity in my heart. Conducting a normal study circle of around 35 participants of such diverse backgrounds, ages, and experiences would have been difficult. Organizing a virtual one must have been a huge and totally different challenge. But you did it beautifully. Congratulations to all of you at BA. Note that it was okay. Right from day zero. Yeah. Freire can be really inspiring or can be daunting. I plodded through this book 35 years ago and have been inspired by his ideas in my work and life. I have also seen that his writings can sometimes lead to disillusionment, despair, cynicism, and finally inaction. But this foray into pedagogy of the oppressed with Suresh and the BA team has revealed greater and greater depths of Freire than ever before. It has led me to re-examine myself, my work, and my relationships at home, work, the structures I have created around myself and the community. It has given me not only a theoretical understanding, but many practical ideas of how to work dialogically with the people around me. Thank you, BA team. Yeah.
Thanks, Krishna.
Can I just add something, Suresh?
Yeah, please, please.
Yeah, I mean, I very much regret that I couldn't be part of the study circle, and I hadn't really got a a sense of what was happening in the program. But today's session was really nice, and I got a very good idea of all the excitement that must have been there, and the process through which you all seem to have gone together. And I could also see the kind of clarity and ideas and what one could do practically with it come through very clearly in today's session. And obviously, you all have put in a lot of effort to get this share this today's session with people like me who have not been part of the circle. So thanks for that, and thanks for opening it out to people like me who have not been part of it. Thank you.
That was nice, Krishna. And thanks, Anu. Anu is down with a very severe throat infection, and as we all could hear. Thanks, Anu, for writing that note and also getting it read. Yeah. I think we now need to close. Ryu, Azad, Saurabh, any last things, or shall we just say thanks to a fantastic group of learners, and we all learned together. Yet another experience where when Freire says the student, teacher, student actually became a reality in this 16-week journey. It's been tough. It's been tough. 9 to 11 every night on every Friday we met. It was difficult. And sometimes 9 to 11 went to 9 to 12. And there were some days in which we had to say we are tired, but participants were wanting to go forward. So the enthusiasm of the group has been similar to various other previous sessions, but we scaled new heights with this group, especially in terms of the creative part. A lot of documentation has come throughout. This time we were very systematic about it. We made sure that people journaled their experiences, their thoughts, as it kept changing as you moved through the text. That was immensely useful. We hope to put it all together and come out with a small booklet, which will be our journey, experiences of our journey, insights of our journey, which I think would be very good. We have been following this at a global level. There are not too many examples of similar things happening. So we would like to offer this on behalf of all of us to the larger world community of people who want to make the world a better place. Different pathways to Rome. This is one way to making the world a better place. I would like to end up with what Bach had said. Yes, Bach, it makes a world of difference when you go through this, because you're not only getting critical education, critical analysis, we are also not only becoming better human beings, but we also learn to work together in solidarity. And that's a core message of Freire, that ultimately it's through the solidarity of action to create a humane society that change actually takes place. And he uses the word transformation. We need this transformation. And more than anything else, we need to bring this energy together and, very importantly, retain our sense of idealism and hope. Because that is the first thing that the current right wing and the way a larger global capital has gone, which strikes at, which is to make us feel that it's impossible to dream the impossible. I think the challenge is, how do we make this impossibility of creating what Freire writes about in the very first page, that the history of the world is the history of people who dared to dream to make the world a better place. The tyrants are forgotten. It's the people who dare to change it. They may have given up their lives, but it's their history which till date continues to inspire us. So I think that's a message that we take, and we take to wherever we go. Thanks everybody for being part of this journey before, during, and now. Hopefully our things will continue. We can continue to have more discussions, maybe once a month or once in 2 months. We can take up themes, we can discuss. So the sky is the limit in terms of innovation and creativity. And we are always open to listen to and to learn. Because every time you enter into a new domain, we also learn. So I think we'll end up with this part here. And on behalf of all of us, hey, thanks to all of us for a wonderful presentation. The presentations were beautiful. I mean, I would like to say thanks to everybody who's been part of it. We only sort of had discussions. We had no idea what was coming, but it was brilliant. And it was fantastic. It was very heart-touching also. So thanks everybody for that.
Yeah, I think special thanks to everybody who joined the small moderators group, because we had a working group for planning the workshops, for the sessions throughout. Now, in such a short time, people volunteering, coming together and putting this sort of a show, I think thanks a lot. It's been really inspiring working with all of you. Sarika, Tanika, Vinuta, Seven, Ria, Subhashini, Anand, Sam, Ravi, Shaba, all of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I didn't understand you, Anu. What did you say? Are we continuing? We will continue the discussions. We'll have to end now. It's 10. It's going to be 10:20. But perhaps we can meet sometime next week. You all have our contact numbers, our contact details. So please be in touch with us. And we can continue the conversation. Friends from abroad, Bach and Subhashri are still around. I don't know who are the others. Please do start the Kudam. Whatever. See, we are not stuck with the word Kudam. It can be any name.